fatal heart impacts, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember you're discreet now, get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Q Show here. And now, whenever we last left off with this series, we had Izuku Midoriya. Whenever he saw the, actions of war and carnage play out in front of him on live television, he had a seizure, and he had to go to a hospital. Now, Midoriya's human mind is beginning to unravel and unlock its true nature. Midoriya is aware of the strange power he does possess. However, he is unaware of a few things about himself. Now, Izuku Midoriya at the age of 18 years old, he was a pacifist up until a few days ago. And he's beginning to change thanks to the power of a golden ring. That he feels like it's boosting his confidence, when in reality this pure gold ring is channeling his power, and it's beginning to harness it. Now, with that being said, he took flight to go find something that he felt. Along with that, you do actually have Momo, who, thanks to her powers, she accidentally killed her father and some people who were discussing where a factory would go. Now, she accidentally tore all of the flesh off their bodies, thanks to her ability to control human flesh. Now, with that being said, Midoriya did begin to fly through the air, as you do actually have Momo. Shortly after this did happen, she was panicking. She didn't know what to do. This entire meeting, there was no bodyguards, no security. It was supposed to be just a quiet, nice night at this place. And it's ruined, as she quickly did flee from the scene. Now, we do then actually have where she did go to take flight and get away from this area. As we do currently have Midoriya, who he is actually flying these just down the block, as he actually does go to stop and look around. He's trying to feel where this happened at, as his eyes actually do dart to something that he does see fly up through the air. As Midoriya would turn his head and see Momo Yaoyorozu. However, he cannot make her out. All he can tell is that that's somebody flying, and he feels something from them. As we do actually have Momo, who, whenever she did take off flying, she would have actually turned and seen Midoriya. The moment these two would have actually made eye contact for the first time, there is something there in both of their minds, and it somewhat turns another gear. As we do have Melissa's shield out in the ocean, her flying above Eye Island, as she actually does bring her hand up to her head and feel a headache. Meanwhile, you do have Shigaraki, who he is asleep, but it does wake him up. Now, back to Midoriya and Momo. Momo, she was still alarmed. Even though she felt this strange feeling looking at the sky, she knew that she was going to be caught for murder. And she was scared, along with that this guy might die from her touching him. Now, she did actually then turn and fly away at high speeds, trying to get away from Midoriya, who himself would go to reach out for her, as he does begin to fly forwards. Now, we do actually have Midoriya and Momo as the two are flying. Momo believes that she's lost this guy, as she does actually go to spin her body around and look behind her, watching as you do have Midoriya, who is flying with his hands and fist, and both of them outstretched, as he's trying to tell her to simply slow down. He wants to talk to her, as she's screaming at him to stay away from her. Now, these two do chase each other, as they fly for almost an hour, Momo trying to take evasive maneuvers and lose Midoriya in a forest, since there's no better place she knows than nature. However, you do have Midoriya, who he does use his knowledge of the area surrounding this one, and he does actually go to land and walk into a cave. Now, you do actually have Momo, who she herself is curled up, as she does just have her head kneeling down onto her knees, as she's trying to calm down, as the moonlight does kiss her skin. Now, she does actually have her eyes closed before she's going to open them, and the moonlight isn't there on her skin anymore, as she does turn and see Midoriya, who he does seem to be somewhat out of breath, as she does stare at him. You need to get away from me, please. No, listen. Midoriya would say as he does bring up his hand. Momo actually going to move to her left, as she does try to get distance. Listen to me. I don't know who you are, but you felt that earlier, right? Felt what? Whenever we saw each other. We know each other. Have we ever met? No, you're a stranger to me. Please get away. How'd you even find me? Easy. There was a battle here once. It destroyed everything in this area. And shortly afterwards, there was a project to try and restore it. This place was a battlefield. Over 1,300 people died, many fighting each other. Their corpses are said to still live this field. However, they're buried under so much trees that the project to get them back would be a waste. What? Yeah. There's a lot more to it, but I would sound creepy. No, it would be a waste. Is that what you just said? Yeah. The men died on battlefields with their own brethren, and against enemies who also did fall. Here nature plays no favorites. It sees them all as one thing. As gross as it sounds, it sees them all as food. It's all it really sees any of us as. You're right, Momo would say, her calming down a bit. As you do have Midoriya, who would walk in more, and ask her exactly what happened and why did she run. Momo going to bite her tongue, as Midoriya does ask if it was death. Death? Yes, it was. You know it was. You killed them. You killed your own father and those men. Now, Momo would bring her hands up to her head and scream, "Stop it." As you do actually have Midoriya, who does see this, as the voice in his head does begin to speak. You finally found another. Now, Midoriya does spin around, as he does go to bring his hands up and ignite a flame in his hand. Now, the moment Midoriya does do this, he actually is confused, going to look down at the stance his hands are in, along with the way his feet are planted. as Midoriya does go to close his hand down slowly and extinguish the flame. As he just bring his hand up to his head, talking about how he keeps hearing that. You heard that too? I'm not crazy, am I? What? That voice. Please tell me I'm not the only one who heard that. Please, please. No, I think I heard it too. What did it say to you? Now, Momo would give her explanation, as Midoriya stared at her, somewhat confused and kind of disgusted. But at the same time, there's some part of him that does feel proud of her. And Midoriya does talk about how, as he does go to sit down, his voice told him that he found another one like him. What? Yeah, it's strange. I don't know the best way to explain it. But now, the moment Midoriya did say that, you actually have where both him and Momo, they do stare at each other for 1 second, before both their heads do spin in the same direction. Now, we do actually have over at Island, where Melissa, she was at. She can feel these two horsemen. Both of these two have met. And then there's the horseman of death, and what it is telling her to do. As she did leave a note and take flight. Now, Island was relatively close to Japan. It was still a good distance away. However, with the high speed Melissa was able to fly over the course of an hour, or close to it, she was able to get very close to where these two are. They're currently hiding in a place close to a beach. As both of them, they have their heads follow. As you can hear the leaves crunching outside, along with twigs being stepped on. As you do have Midoriya and Momo. Midoriya actually going to turn his body around as he does ignite his left hand. And then there it is through the moonlight, as Midoriya looks up. It's a girl with snow white skin and long blonde hair. And she's covered in a black cloth. In the moonlight, she looks so elegant, beautiful, and, well, a goddess. It's hard to mistake what that would be. How else is what he's seeing real? Now, there is then when Melissa does open her mouth and ask if they're both feeling that. As Momo would spin to Momo, and Momo would do the exact same thing to him. As Midoriya does seem a bit more confused, asking why did she do that, as she asks him the exact same question. Now, you do actually then have, well, Melissa, who she does try to explain some things to them. Now, Melissa, she asks them if they remember anything. Remember what? I see. So, which one of us are you? Which one of what? Okay. I'm going to try and explain this the best way that I can. It appears your memories haven't returned yet. Then again, you're a pacifist if I think so, right? How do you know who I am? Because I can feel death. The aura surrounds you. In fact, I can look right through you to your very soul. And I can even see it in her too. She murdered recently. A couple men. Now, Momo would get angry, as she does go straight up to Melissa and go to grab her by her cloak and scream at her that she didn't mean to do it. Now, this is whenever Momo actually is going to throw herself backwards and throw her hands up, as it does seem to be quite strange. Now, this would be where Momo does look at Melissa and she's very confused, wondering why she's not dead. I see. It doesn't work on any of us. Any of what? What are we? Okay. I would try to force you to wake up. Then again, that might make you brain dead. Brain dead? What are you talking about? Now, you actually have Midoriya who would speak up, asking if the visions and dreams are what she's talking about. Now, you do actually have Melissa who would turn to Midoriya and say, yes, those. She doesn't know too much about them herself. However, she's going off of what she keeps written down. Okay. So, what? Now, you do actually have Melissa who would go to stand up and walk outside, asking the two to follow her. Now, one somewhat crazy sounding explanation later, you do have what Melissa does tell these two. They are supposed to be the people who end the world. The very moment that any of them were born, the gears of death turned for the worlds. Now, it all does sound quite insane. However, you do actually have Melissa who explains this. And something that even does seem to be quite strange that she does. Now, Melissa threw up her hand, and she thought of death, as a sickle came to her side, at her beck and call, out of nowhere, and it seemed to frighten Momo, who she didn't really know what to do. Now, Melissa did explain it, that Midoriya is the horseman of war. He has the ability to control people through emotion, and the sense of death she gets around him. It was somebody close, somebody he knows hurt somebody else. Is she correct? Now, Midoriya would confirm, as he does seem to get a little bit angry. As Melissa, she does just talk more and more, trying to explain it. Now, this is where things do seem to get weird. She is trying to fill in gaps in her own knowledge with what they do know. The moment that she felt like she was awakening was years ago. She watched a man die, and she froze. From that very moment, she could feel death around the world. She felt the deaths of a lot of people in one single second. All the deaths of everybody who's ever lived. And she didn't really know what to even say. She can think things, learn things, and even control things about a person. Now, Midoriya does then ask, if she's death and he's war, the moment Midoriya does say that, war, 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 that simple little phrase, Midoriya is saying it out loud and over again. He is the horseman of war. The way it rolls off his tongue, the way it comes out in his voice, the way he hears it, the way he feels it, it feels perfect, more natural than his own actual name. Now, Midoriya, he says he is the horseman of war for the first time, as you do actually have a blade that comes falling from the sky, as Midoriya would look over and see it. Now, this was quite strange, as Midoriya does look down at his hands, and he feels them. He feels like he actually does feel them for the first time. Every little movement his fingers make when they touch each other, every drop of sweat he's ever had, every ounce of blood he has in his body, he feels it. It feels like it's all going to boil to the surface if he doesn't do something. And Midoriya, he does go to walk up to the blade, as he does pull it. Now, Midoriya gets his hands on this weapon, and he does feel how natural it is in his hands. As more things about Midoriya's own personality and his older self do feel like they begin to bubble to the surface. After Midoriya does get a nosebleed, he does feel like he knows a bit of information, and he does share what he does have. Now, you do actually have Melissa who does smile at learning this, and Momo, who still is trying to process things. Now, the moment this blade dropped from Midoriya out of the sky, you do have Shigaraki, who he himself had to be taken to the hospital, since he just had an aneurysm in his bed. Now, with that being said, you do have Momo, who she is trying to understand all of it. It seems like it's just, well, different. This little thing about her that she's never known. She asked Melissa, who is she? Thinking that she might be, well, Death herself, or a figment of it, or at least a servant, as she calls her the horseman of famine. Now, this all does seem to be quite strange, as Momo does think those words. Now, Momo, nothing special would happen to her at the moment, but she does feel something different. She feels a bit more pride in what she's done. She got rid of the waste of space, the people who were polluting Mother Earth, causing her trouble. They are no longer in the way. They can't cause her pain. Now, Momo does seem to calm down a little bit too fast, and Midoriya would turn to her, asking Momo if she's alright. I think I'm okay. You sure? Yeah. It's just. I'm trying to think properly. Now, you do actually have Melissa, who would tell both of them that they might start to think like the human aspects of each other, or themselves. They've been masquerading as humans or reincarnated as humans, and it will take some time for their bodies to completely restore themselves to what they once were. Now, Midoriya would ask about that, to which Melissa would explain certain things that will change for Midoriya are going to be quite simple. First of all, he probably might get taller. Or, well, definitely, he's going to gain a lot more muscle mass. As for, well, Momo, she might get a bit more, well, what's the best way to say it? Sadistic. And physically, some of the changes that will happen they might seem to be wrong at first. However, her body is just going back to normal. Now, this does concern Momo. However, at the same time, she's somewhat okay with it. The idea that she can go back to some sort of normal after this for her, it doesn't feel right, but at the same time, this is her new normal. Now, Midoriya, he would exchange phone numbers with these two, as Melissa does talk about what their next move needs to be, and how once they fully awaken, then things can be a whole lot easier. Now, Melissa would then fly away, as she does want to see what these two will do by themselves. She's had an entire island where accidents happen a lot, to at least begin her own awakening. It took her years to simply get where she was. All the hiding, all the constant everything. She's had to hide herself. And with every single time something happened to the other horsemen, something happened to her as well. Something happened to the other ones. Anytime any of them make a small breakthrough, they all do. However, Melissa, she's the one who's been mostly affected because of her particular circumstances. Now, with that all being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed and have an amazing night. I'll catch you guys in the next part.